What's going on, everybody? It's Dan back with another Moonshine talking. Uh, Today, I'm gonna give my thoughts and opinions on this new Deicide that just came out, Banished by Sin. There it is. You can see that there. You've probably heard about 1,000 reviews and opinions on this one, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever the case might be. So let me be the man of 1,001. So this came out a couple weeks ago on RPM Music, which is a new label. Not really familiar with them. I know they got Harry King. He's got his new album on there. Sebastian Bach's about to put something else. He's about to put a new one out on there, which I'll probably pick up. Um, but beyond that, I'm not too familiar with them. I know they're a newer one. Not quite sure what the deal is with it, but yeah, they came out a couple weeks ago. It's 12 tracks, almost 40 minutes long, 39 roughly. I think it's like 38 and change, something like that. And it's very dense as far as the tracks and the music. I mean, there's a lot of music in that short a period of time, but it's good. As far as the band itself, I first got into Deicide when I was a young kid. When I was at when I went to school, we'd have study hall periods, and when you go to the library, they would always have magazines. And at the time, I was more into hard rock, maybe a little more classic metal, trad metal, stuff like that. Wasn't really finding the heavy stuff quite yet, but there was a Rip magazine, and I got reading that, and they had an article, and it was all about the Tampa death metal scene, and they talked about Deicide, talked about Cannibal Corpse, Morbid Angel. There was even a picture in there where Trey had bitten his arm and drew blood, so he's playing guitar, and he's got his arms all bleeding and whatnot. So it was a pretty killer photo. And a couple other bands, and they were just talking about the scene and how it was exploding and all that sort of good stuff. I saw an MTV segment where they talked to Dave Vincent from Morbid Angel. They may have talked to Glenn Benton. I'm not quite sure. It's been a while since I saw the segment, and a couple other guys, and they again discussed the scene. So it intrigued me. It was something that I was definitely looking to get into heavier stuff. I mean, probably the heaviest at that point that I was listening to was probably like a Slayer or maybe Megadeth or some of the big four thrash bands. So Deicide was kind of like many people. It was my gateway band into more extreme music, and I went out, went to Rock Fantasy, picked up Legion, picked up the self-titled. As the years went on, I got Once Upon the Cross, and then honestly, I kind of fell off listening to them because, at least in my opinion, for my tastes at the time, they were getting kind of one-dimensional. To me, there's only so many times where I can listen to you say fuck God and Satan this, Satan that. And it's just like, okay, it's getting kind of, this is getting redundant. It's getting kind of boring. So I moved on to other bands and types of music and stuff like that that I was held my interest a little bit better. So I didn't listen to Deicide for the longest time. I still listen to those first two especially. I got to revisit Once Upon the Cross because I haven't listened to the full thing in a while. But the first few songs, of course, Once Upon the Cross, we're the Children of the Underworld. Those are a couple of my favorite songs they've done. But I love those first two. Those first two are classics, especially the first one. The first one, in my opinion, is probably that's probably the best death metal album that's ever been produced, at least in my opinion. That's probably like the definitive, like you must have that in your collection if you listen to this type of music. But I just, like I said, I fell off listening to them for a while. Found out they were putting out a new album, so I was interested. I said, "Yeah, let me revisit these guys and check them out and see how the thing is." It just happened. I forgot that the album was coming out the week it came out, and I saw a review. I saw the Thralls of Metal guys did a review on it. They had very glowing, positive things to say about it. Um, so I just went on. I went on, hopped on, and saw if my local Sound Exchange had one. They had a copy of it, so I called them, asked them to hold it for me. It's like, hey, it's the guy with the big beard, big crazy beard, who always buys the metal stuff. Can you hold that for me? And they're like, yeah, sure. Well, come on down. Well, sorry, I'll see you in a few minutes. So I went, got it, picked it up, listened to it, gave it a first spin, and it sounded good. And then gave it a few more spins. I just wanted to get more familiar with it, and I'm not really too concerned with being first on the beat, as it were, as far as putting out my opinions on albums that have been released or anything like that. So I listened to it a few more times, took a few notes. So let's go over my notes. Well, I should probably say first of all the band. It's of course Glenn Benton on bass and vocals, Steve Ashim. I'm probably screwing up his name on drums. They're like the core of the band. They always have been. They've always been. They're the two main guys, two of the founding members. Well, not actually, not even two of the founding members, because I think Glenn came in after the first vocalist. Um, they have I forget his name already. There's Taylor Nordberg, which I was pissed at Eddie, man. He made a Nordberg joke on his review, and I was gonna do a Naked Gun reference on mine, but I guess I won't do that. I'm sure you could probably do some with OJ in Hell or something or other like that. And then gosh, I really Curion, his last name. I'm probably butchering it. I can't remember what his first name is off the top of my head. I had it earlier tonight, but he's the other guitar player. He's been with him since around 2013. As a post production edit. I'm an idiot. I've been hit in the head once too often. His name's Kevin Curion. I'm probably still butchering his last name, but that's his name. I wanted to give the guy respect. He's a good guitar player. All right, later. Taylor Nordberg he comes from Inhuman Condition, The Absence, Rib Spreader. Those are the bands that I'm familiar with. A little, not so much The Absence, but the Thralls of Metal guys were talking about him being in a melodic death band. I'm more familiar with Rib Spreader and Inhuman Condition. Uh, those are both great bands. I love Reap Humanity. That's probably the only thing I'm familiar with Rib Spreader. In Human Condition, I saw them live recently, and they were tremendous. I really enjoyed them. But The Absence, I'm not really familiar with. I know they got a new album coming out, so I might just pick that out just to see how they sound. Um, and it sounds like he's brought at least what he's brought to the table is a little bit more of that mellow death style to some of the writing because he helped write some of the songs. I also think some of the black metal bands that he was in probably helped. It seems like they, at least with Faithless, which is one of my more favorite tracks on the entire album, it seemed like it had a more black metal flair to it, and that's a really good song. Starts out from Unknown Heights, You Shall Fall. That one was that's great. That's a great opener. Sounded that one kind of sounded very reminiscent of We Are the Children of the Underworld, and it's a good way to start the album. I mean, again, Deicide they have a style, they have a formula that works for them, and at least if it's going to sound like, at least to me, it's going to sound like stuff that I'm familiar with. I'm probably going to get into it, and there was definitely lots of little notes and callbacks to stuff that you could like. There's songs you pick up where you hear some Mephistopheles riffage in there, and you can hear some stuff off of Legion and Once Upon the Cross, and I'm sure probably some of the later albums that people are more familiar with. But as far as my favorite song, and then it closes with The Light Defeated. That's a killer song, great way to close the album. But Woke from God, I really enjoyed that. I like the riff and how it complemented Steve's drummings. I thought that was really well done, and that really held my interest. Banished by Sin, that was possibly my favorite track on the album. And although I will say that the bass was a little thin in the mix on that one, I kind of like, especially on Legion, the way that Glenn's bass was up front and real prominent in the sound, and that held a lot of appeal for me when I listened to it back in the day. Not that I don't listen to it anymore, but it's definitely something that really stood out to me and is prominent, of course, because 30 years later I'm still talking about it. So it did something for me. And then A Trinity of None, that was a really good one. I love the vocals on it. That was probably, I wrote Killer Riffage. The riffs on there were killer too. The whole album is very, very tight, very well done. I'm not familiar with the last album that they did, but I think a few people were really poo pooed on it. So I would say that this one, if that was a bad one, then this one's probably where they got their feel back, they got their balls back, as it were. Not that they ever lost them, not that there was some neutered band or anything, but it's definitely this is definitely There's the rough and the tough stuff and all that sort of good stuff. Um, but yeah, some of the other songs on there, like "Bury the Cross with Your Christ" is all right. "Sever the Tongue" was decent. It wasn't my favorite track on the album, but it was all right. And then the "I Am I" that was good. I mean, the whole album's good. It's real solid. It's a real tight one. Like I say, it's very dense as far as the music in it. It's for 40 minutes and 12 songs. I mean, they're compacting a lot in there, which is great. And it was very heavy. I would say probably on the stank face rating. I'll spit that out eventually. I'd probably give it 3 out of 5. And it was good. It's definitely it's worth listening to. Whether or not you feel like picking it up is up to you. I know a lot of people were bitching and moaning about the artwork. It's like, at this point, what do you get? It's a moot point. The album's out, the artwork's on it. It is what it is. You know that debate over AI versus humans doing stuff. That's all fine and good. Glenn gave an explanation saying that he loves working with computers, and he did the same thing with Legion, and people weren't bitching back then. So what's the deal with people complaining now? I even read something like, I think one of the interviews he gave, he said that most of the artwork was done. He just touched it up with the AI shit. So, and I get it, switch. You got people who are artisans, designers, artists, and whatnot, and they could probably use the work. And he's using computer generated stuff and all that sort of thing. I get it, but at the same time, you know, sometimes these things are going to happen. Money's tight. People want to invest money more into this or that, and maybe this is, for lack of a better way to describe it, a shortcut that people want to use. I would prefer to. If it were me, I would probably go out and seek out an artist to do anything. If I were to want to do something that is a little more on the creative side, artsy side, I'd probably find somebody who could get it done for me, because it's nice to just pay people and whatnot, but it's also cool sometimes you just let the technology work for you. There's some things you can't, like, this shit would probably be a lot better if I had a producer, somebody who knew what the hell was going on with the technology and all that. It'd probably be a lot easier for me to do things, and I could focus on trying to entertain people, which I probably don't do anyway. But the point being is that, I could just press a button and things would work, then it'd be a lot easier. But I think you get my point. But that's that. That's my input on that whole debate. But overall, yeah, go pick this thing up. It's good. It's definitely worth a listen. As far as where it would rank thus far on the albums I've heard this year, it's kind of middle of the pack. It's definitely not the greatest thing I've heard. It's not the worst. It's not sitting down there in like I'd say Saxon or Ace Frehley territory, which I was going to do a review on that, but I'll give a quick one. It's decent. It's a good hard rock album. There's a few good songs on it. A lot of it's real kind of very sappy and very poppy, almost like very 70s pop sort of stuff, like Sweet and stuff like that. If you're familiar with bands like that, or even some of the stuff that he did in Kiss. I like Ace Frehley. I figured I like his lazy style of doing things, so I appreciate it. "Shock Me" is a really cool song, so I've always enjoyed that one. He just has a unique style to him, but it's a good hard rock album. But it's not great. There's a few good songs on it, but beyond that, it's very middle of the road, kind of popish hard rock. So if you want to go check out here, 10,000 volts, go check out the album. It's 10,000 volts is a good song. There's a couple others on there that are halfway decent, but for the most part, it's kind of poppy, a little too poppy. And then there's one song on there, "Constantly Cute," and I mean, it's such a sappy, saccharine title. It almost gave me diabetes listening to it and hearing that song and that title. But yeah, that's one I would check out. I don't know if it's worth buying for most people, but that one kind of sits at the tail end of my best of 2024 thus far. So yeah, that's my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you enjoy the content. I got more videos coming up. Hopefully you enjoy those. Let people know I'm out here boring people to tears with my face for radio and my voice for silent movies. And I will talk to you on the next one. And as always, stay sick, stay heavy, stay brutal. Always tuck your chin upon impact. Don't forget to breathe. And I hope everybody has a good one. I will talk to you on the next one. Later.